Welcome to episode 6 of Safety Snacks, a series of bite-sized videos and interactive workshops that will help you protect yourself from doxing, hacking, and other kinds of online abuse. I'm Victoria Vilk, and I run PEN America's Online Abuse Defense Program.
And I'm Maria Alejandra from the International Women's Media Foundation.
If you're a journalist in most parts of the world, chances are you've used Facebook for work. We're often told that the only way to build a large audience and a strong brand is by sharing information about ourselves and our lives. But all of that can expose you to harassment. The challenge is finding the right balance between visibility and reach on the one hand and safety and privacy on the other.
So in this episode, we're going to empower you to find that balance on Facebook. We'll show you how to navigate the labyrinth that is Facebook's privacy settings and security settings, and how to review what information is publicly available about you. So let's start by talking about why it's important to separate your personal and professional life on social media. Abusive trolls comb the internet trying to piece together private information about your life, from where you went to school to your relatives and loved ones. Social media accounts can really be a goldmine. So it's important to put some boundaries between our private and our professional selves online. The problem is that social media platforms have made it cumbersome to set those boundaries. So Victoria, can you talk us through how to set some of those boundaries?
Sure. So with Facebook, you technically can't have two separate accounts. That's against the rules, and we would never suggest that you do anything that's against the rules. But there are still a bunch of things you can do to set boundaries. One option is to have a private Facebook profile and a public Facebook page. Profiles and pages work a little bit differently, but that's your best possible bet from a privacy and safety standpoint.
I don't really want to do that, though. That sounds like a lot of work.
Well, it's definitely a best practice, Maria Alejandra, but it's not my place to make you do something you don't want to do. The good news is that there's still a bunch of stuff you can't do. Let's say you want to use your Facebook account primarily for your private life. You're going to want to tighten all of your privacy settings as much as possible. But at the same time, if you want to post stuff related to your work occasionally, you can still make those individual posts public. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now let's say, on the other hand, that you want to primarily use Facebook professionally. In that case, you can have the settings be more public. But then you want to be very careful about posting potentially revealing things about your private life. For example, your photos of your family, your pictures that might reveal your location, things like that.
So how do I decide how much to share if my account is mostly public? I get that you don't want me to post photos of my front door, but can I post photos of my cat?
Honestly, only you can decide if you want to post photos of your cat. I mean, by all means, but if you've included your cat's name in the post and you use your cat's name in your passwords or as an answer to one of your security questions, then maybe don't post photos of your cat. Basically, all I'm trying to say is that there's no right answer. What we're trying to do here today is to empower you to make informed decisions that make you safer.
Okay, I see your point. So no cat on my public profile on Facebook, but so where do we start?
Well, the most important place to start, the very best thing you can do to protect your Facebook account, whether it's public or private, is to make your login more secure. And if you're not sure what we're talking about, please be sure to check out episodes 3 and 4 of our Safety Snacks, where we show you how to create a strong password and how to set up two-factor authentication. But that is honestly just the beginning. There are all kinds of other things that you can do to protect your Facebook account. Rayla Hunter, what's next? What do we do next?
So together we're going to wind through the labyrinth that is Facebook's privacy settings, and don't worry, we'll hold your hand through it. So hold your phone, grab your phone or your laptop and take a minute to log into Facebook. You can go ahead and pause here if you need to. So as we dig in, one quick thing to keep in mind is that, believe it or not, Facebook settings are called different things on different people's phones, just to make things as confusing as possible. So you might want to use your imagination a bit if there's slight differences in our Facebook app compared to yours, or in doubt, just Google it. Everything we're going to review today should be found under settings and privacy. And so let's start by checking where in the world you're logged into Facebook right now. So you're going to want to go to privacy and then settings and then password and security. On some accounts, this might be called security and login instead. Under the section called where you're logged in, take a close look at all of the devices and the locations that are listed, and you're going to want to click see all and then be prepared to kind of freak out. So are you logged into any devices that you're not using anymore or that you don't remember having? Or are you logged in from somewhere in the world that you didn't visit? So if you are, go ahead and log out of all of those. And feel free to pause here again to review your logins.
So while you're still in the section that you were logged in before, the one that's got the words password, security, or login in it, scroll down a bit to the section called extra security. We highly recommend enabling alerts for all unrecognized logins. That way, if a hacker anywhere in the world is actually trying to break into your account, you'll get an alert. As long as you took the time to set up a secure login, like we mentioned earlier, then as far as you're concerned, that hacker can go fly a kite. Sorry. Okay, so we talked a bit about account security. Now let's strategize about how public or private you want all of your stuff to be on Facebook. Let's start by figuring out what information is already visible on your profile. You're still under settings and privacy, but now you're trying to find a section called something like profile info. On some phones, it's going to be under a section called audience and visibility. If you're still trying to find it, don't worry, go ahead and pause right now or Google it if you need to. Once you found profile information, take a good hard look at everything you have and ask yourself, do you really want everyone to know where you went to high school or your current relationship status, for example?
So I'm looking at it now. Are you saying I should remove everything?
Well, that's kind of your call. I don't know what you think is the right thing to do, but I will say that you might want to delete some of that information, and some of it you might just want to make visible only to you or only to your friends. And remember, abusers are trying to piece together a bunch of information about you to do you harm. What you want to do is make it much harder for them. And again, if you need to take a minute to pause and really study your profile, now's a good time.
So we talked about what's visible on your profile. Let's talk about posts. So we're still in settings and privacy, and you're going to scroll to a section that says posts. It's probably under audience and visibility still. So if you're trying to limit who can see your future posts, an important thing to keep in mind is that what you're choosing here is the default setting. On Facebook, you can have all of your posts default to only be visible to friends, but then if you still want to set an individual post to be public, you can still do that on a case-by-case basis. Further down, to limit who can see your past posts, that's something different. When you're enabling the setting to limit your past posts, you're basically telling Facebook to go back in time and make any old posts that were public now only visible to your friends. This is a really good way to tighten things up if you've been on Facebook for 15 plus years and you can't even remember what you posted when you were in high school. This is another good moment to pause and play around with the settings under posts. Now that we've covered who can see your posts and your profile info, let's talk about how people can find you and contact you. Victoria, talk us through it.
I'd be happy to. And this is actually super important. Once again, we're in the section called settings and privacy, and you're trying to find something called how people find and contact you. It's probably going to be under audience and visibility. If it's in a different place on your phone, go ahead and pause, and then you can Google it. In terms of who can see your friend requests, we recommend limiting that to friends of friends. Believe it or not, one way that someone can be abused is by being bombarded with friend requests, which is kind of sick and evil. In terms of who can see your friends lists, we strongly recommend limiting that to friends. You don't want abusive trolls to find your family and friends. First of all, they might try to harass them. Second of all, your family and friends might be leaking a bunch of info about you without even meaning to. Like, for example, when your grandmother posts your address because she's just so excited about your new house.
May or may not be based on a true story.
Next, we highly recommend disabling who can look you up via the phone number and email address you provided. Here's why. You don't want abusive trolls to connect the dots between all of your private info online. For example, your cell phone and all the info that's on your Facebook account. You don't want them to connect those dots because that makes it easier to hack you and to miss you. When it comes to linking your profile to search engines, we recommend turning that off. When people Google you, you don't necessarily want them to immediately find your Facebook account, especially if it's full of embarrassing posts from your grandma, from your own teenage self, whatever. Further down under audience and visibility, you also want to check out the section called followers and public content and set as many of those settings to friends as possible. And go ahead and feel free to pause here to work your way through all of these settings.
So now we're going to tackle who can post and tag to your profile. You're still in settings and privacy, and you're still probably under audience and visibility, but now you're trying to find a section called profile and tagging. And here you can pick who's allowed to post to your profile and who can see what other people post on your profile. Keep in mind, allowing people to post on your profile can be a vector for harassment, so you might want to limit that to friends. And you can also control who can tag you and review all tags before accepting or rejecting them. That stuff is broken into tagging and reviewing. So for the stuff under tagging, we recommend setting that to friends. And then for the stuff under reviewing, we recommend turning that on. The reason it's a good idea to have control over tagging is that trolls can tag you in abusive images. And even if you're not being harassed by trolls, nobody likes to be tagged in a bad photo anyways.
Well, definitely not me. We both know it. I'm very vain. I wouldn't like that.
So Victoria, scrolling down, I'm seeing a thing called location under permissions. What's that?
Well, are you prepared to be very terrified? Because if you have the Facebook app on your phone or you're logged into Facebook on a web browser, Facebook is tracking and saving your location every second of the day, all day, in real time. And I'm not joking. And they can sell all that information to other people. So we strongly encourage you to turn all that off. Under settings and privacy, if you go to permissions and then location, you can disable location services. We very much recommend selecting never for accessing your location. Are you properly terrified now, Maria Alejandra?
Yeah, that's horrifying, but I do feel a little empowered now.
Okay, I'm glad. Well, the last tip in today's episode is to check what apps and websites you've linked to your Facebook accounts. Remember that era when people signed up for cutesy quizzes and promotions?
What?
Okay, now I feel old. But if you're old like me, you might have done this by accident many, many years ago, and that's what we were doing. The problem is that you've given these random apps a backdoor to your Facebook account, and they might be really shady. You can find out by going to settings and privacy and looking for something called apps and websites, probably under permissions. Review all the apps and websites you've linked to your Facebook account and get rid of any that you don't want.
Okay, I think that's enough for today. Thank you for watching the 6th episode of Safety Snacks. If you got stuck on anything in this video and need help, or you just want some emotional support, we'll be running a live workshop on this content on July 14th at noon Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in. In the next episode, we're going to help you tackle your Instagram and LinkedIn accounts. So remember, stay safe online, and don't forget to grab your next safety snack.